this is Rick Mercer, and we are here with another episode of Garner Station Podcast, which we also share on our YouTube channel. You can look for that at youtube.com/Town of Garner. We're here at Garner Performing Arts Center, which some of you can probably recognize if you're watching. And we have a special guest with us today, Arlie Honeycutt. I knew I was going to make that mistake. Arlie Kidd.
Yes, it's okay. My husband said to me this weekend, Arlie Honeycutt, I can't believe you did that. And I said, you're worse than my students. It's your last name. You can't do that. Yes, no, you're in good company. It's okay.
And sure it won't be the last time I make that mistake. But you kind of grew up on this stage to some extent, and grew up on the stage in general. And I know that there is a story that I've heard before, and maybe I've heard your mom or probably your dad tell it, about how you first took the stage when you were about 3 years old.
I did.
You want to start out by telling us about that?
Yeah, I definitely grew up in and around theater. My parents were always involved in theater, and my mom was actually directing a production of Tar Heel Tales here in Garner, and I think it was something that they were doing out on Main Street. I may be wrong about that, but it was here in the area, and the day of the show arrived, and one of the actors didn't show up, and so I, in my enthusiastic 3-year-old way, said, oh, just let me do it. I know all the lines. I can do it. I had been at all the rehearsals. And so out of desperation, my mom said, all right, go for it. And it went really well. The show went on, and I've been bitten by the bug and haven't wanted to leave the stage ever since.
That's great. And you've been on this stage here at GPAC for a number of times. Mm-hmm. You work through on the Town Player shows. What's the first show you remember working with? And tell us about the summer theater camp too.
Yeah. So I was always around. I was helping out however I could when I was little, because I was in rehearsals and I would watch and just take it all in. I remember seeing The Fantastics and just falling in love with that show when I was maybe 7 years old, and had the opportunity to do it several years later, which was wonderful. And so that was really probably the first show that really made a lasting impact on me. But I was always trying to find ways to get involved. I would pull the curtain if they would let me. Usually, though, I was relegated to passing out seat cushions or programs, but it was a job I took really, really seriously. And as I got a little older, we started to see more of our townies having children who were interested in getting involved. And so my parents actually started a youth program for kids to join during the summer. I believe that the first show that we did was when the theater was being renovated. We did Little Women, and maybe it was the next year, I might be flipping them around, but we also did Alice in Wonderland, and we performed it at one of the local churches. And then when the theater was done being renovated, we got back on the stage, and that's when the big musicals started. So we started doing the MTI Junior shows. We did Godspell Junior to start, and that was when I was 14 years old, and we had maybe 15 kids in the cast. And now the same program has grown and expanded. We did Beauty and the Beast, not this past summer, but the previous summer, and we had 100 kids on stage. This summer we did Honk Jr., and there are kids from schools all over the Triangle area here in Garner and beyond. And we have little guys from ages 5 up to age 18. And so they are a huge production, and it's really cool to have been there from the beginning and see it grow from 15 to 85.
And I was wandering around as we were setting up, and I did find a remnant from the Honk show.
Yes.
So,
they'll never go away.
There are quite a few others. But yeah, it's all the work the town players do are great. The summer camp and the show that culminates in, that is the culmination of the camp, is something I know a little bit about because I got a couple little girls who participate, and it always impresses me the way that y'all can put it together in such a short amount of time, number one. Number two, the talent of some of the young people who participate. The way the older kids help model or mentor and help out the little ones. And there's such a great spirit of inclusion. And could you talk about that? I know that's very important to your mom, and that was part of her vision initially when she started the the summer youth theater camp.
Absolutely. Well, that's what's really cool about the summer camp is that for the older guys component, we have the elementary schoolers who they have a camp that is a partnership with the town of Garner, and so they have the opportunity to come and watch what the older kids are doing. It's really cool to see little guys who start when they're 5 years old move up through the ranks, and by the time they're in 5th grade, they're taking it very seriously and ready to make that leap into the audition portion of the camp. The audition part of the camp is completely free. And so if you come and audition, you get cast in the show. And that was something that was really important to my mom, Beth Honeycutt, to make sure that kids got the opportunity to experience theater in a warm and nurturing environment. Even if they're not ready to step out into the spotlight and be in the lead role, there are opportunities for them to get on stage. And so that's really helpful to them, I think, when they go back to their high schools and they're not auditioning for a show for the very first time and terrified. They've got a little bit of experience, they feel confident, and it's really cool to see kids growing more and more empowered with every summer that we see them. There's always someone who comes back the following year who was kind of at the back and kind of shy, and they walk up on stage for their audition and just belt out something incredible, and it's like, who are you? Where did you come from?
This?
Oh my
All
gosh,
along, yeah.
yes. And you see it from the first day to the very last day. I watched a documentary a little while back, and it was talking about Il Sistema, the music program, and it was saying kids can't, they look at, I want to be a doctor someday, I want to be an astronaut, but they can't do that when they're kids. But if you put an instrument in their hands, they can be a musician right away. And I think the same thing can be said of the theater. You can walk in and learn over the 4 weeks that we're together, the 5 weeks for the little guys, a little bit about what it takes to be on stage and call yourself, I am an actor, and it's really empowering, I think, for the younger guys who get to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I was going to come back to that later when we talk more. I wanted to talk about, why, I think in our educational system and our culture, maybe we don't value the arts as much as we could, or understand why that's important in developing your who you are as a person, your identity, and your ability to go out into the world and do things. I see you nodding your head. Like, what do you think about that? Why are the performing arts in particular so valuable to young people, do you think?
Well, I think we live in a very data-driven world, and I think, you look all the time, that's what we want to see is the numbers. How can we quantify this? And the data is definitely there. If you look, there was a study that the National Endowment for the Arts released, I think it was 2012, and they compiled years and years of research and saw, over and over again, you see kids with their academic scores are increasing exponentially with just one arts class on their schedule when they're in high school. If kids don't take any art classes, their likelihood of graduating goes down by like times 5. It's crazy. And so you can quantify those numbers. You look at SAT scores, they're like 100 points higher for kids who are involved in performing arts. And so it's definitely there. But I think that what artists tend to connect with, and what I know I connect with, are those intangible things, arts for art's sake. And you watch these, you can hear these anecdotes, and you see these kids who, they start on day one, they're very shy, they're very unsure, and they come into their own. And so in addition to those, statistics and facts and figures, you look at kids. We have a kid who started with us when she was very, very young. She came every single summer as a little guy, moved up into the older kids camp, and she's actually someone who had open heart surgery when she was a baby, and it had a big impact on her growth and development. And in the theater, she was respected and loved and flourishes in the theater. Every time she steps on stage, her talents are recognized, and has a friend group that she developed because of that. And so seeing those things happen in front of your eyes, it's not a great data point, but it's definitely really powerful.
Yeah. So even if you do want to be that astronaut or computer programmer or engineer, whatever, it could still help you
it's a step in the right direction.
To do some arts.
Absolutely.
As you're growing up.
Absolutely.
So a lot of folks in the community know you. They know you from growing up and being on the stage, and then of course you won Miss North Carolina in 2012. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
But maybe they don't know what you've been doing in the past 6-7 years. So why don't you catch us up on kind of what you've been doing with your education and professionally and.
Yeah, so I won Miss North Carolina when I was getting ready to start my junior year at East Carolina. So I came back to school after I finished my year and went on to graduate from ECU with my Bachelor's of Music in Vocal Performance. And from there, used the scholarship funds that I had earned through the Miss America program to go to grad school. So I went to Louisiana State University for grad school and got my Master's of Music there. And then came back to Garner. My now husband got a job at NC State, and as much as I loved being out in the world and experiencing a little more than just my slice of life in North Carolina, I missed home terribly, and I love this community and love where I'm from. And so when he was hired at NC State, I was like, oh, bummer, I guess we have to go back. So we wound up back here, and I'm now teaching at Southern Wake Academy. I'm the performing arts teacher there. It's a public charter school in Holly Springs, right there at the Holly Springs Fuquay split. And we have a growing school. It's a middle and high school hybrid, and we've got 800 students enrolled. And just within the performing arts program, we've seen a huge growth there as well. Last year we did a fall play and a spring show, which was the first time they had ever had anything like that. And this year we had such huge turnout for the fall auditions that we split it up. So now we've got a fall show, a little winter intermezzo, and a spring show coming up in the spring too. So it's really cool to see the arts catch on, and I try to carry some of my mom's spirit of inclusivity into what we do at Southern Wake Academy, because I see the power of the arts and want to spread it as much as I can.
But that sounds like that's adding more and more work to your plate.
Well,
it's work you love, I'm sure.
Yes.
But it's work, and I know you're doing other things. We're getting ready to do a show soon for the town players. So you go to school, you do teaching, you're working on shows there, and then you run over to GPAC or somewhere in Garner and do rehearsals for the show.
Yeah.
So first of all, how are you holding up, and how do you maintain that schedule?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I definitely stay busy, and when I was in college, I mean, that's the good thing about the Miss America experience. You start as Miss Local, and so I was Miss Kinston, Lenoir County, and I remember there was a semester right before I competed for Miss North Carolina where I literally scheduled my day in like 30-minute increments to make sure I got every single thing done, and I would put like shower on my schedule, like remember to go to the cafeteria and get a snack, like just get your life together. So I'm not quite at that point right now, but I'm getting there. I teach voice lessons, and I do like to stay really busy, but I never get bored, and I mean, it's totally worth it. I love being on stage, and I also think that like as a teacher and director, it helps to put myself in those shoes. I just came from a rehearsal where my kids were off book for the first time, and having just been off book for Act 1 for Little Mermaid, I was probably a lot more understanding and gentle than I might have been with some of the flubs otherwise, because I'm like, y'all, I was just there. You know what you need to do. You know what you need to fix. I'll see you tomorrow. So yeah, I think it's helpful. It helps me to keep things in perspective if I'm doing the things that I'm asking them to do myself.
Yeah. So you did kind of get or lead into my next question, which is, what is the show that town players are doing?
Yes.
And let's talk about that a little bit,
Yes.
because I think by the time this comes out, we may just be a few days away from that show.
Yes, yeah, and it's a we, because you're in the
Yeah,
show too.
well,
Yes,
I
Chef
guess.
Louis with the impeccable French diction. Yes, but yeah, we're doing Little Mermaid. It is the Disney show, and so all your favorite songs, that whether that's Les Poissons or Under the Sea or Part of Your World or Kiss the Girl, they're all there. So yeah.
And are there some additional songs too?
Yes.
This is kind of based on the Broadway play. I mean, it's
yeah,
Disney, but
yeah.
it's also based on the Broadway, and so there are some songs that are not in the
Yes,
movie?
yeah. Some
Yeah.
brand new songs. So if you're a fan of the Broadway version, you'll find some things that feel familiar. But if
Yeah.
you haven't seen it before, then definitely some fun new songs. And some of the new songs have become my favorites really quickly. I Walk Around the Seagulls sing a song called Positivity, and I basically anytime we rehearse it, I walk around for the next 3 days singing Positivity myself. So yeah, it's all really great music, super catchy, and a really fun take on a classic for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So let's do the plug for it right now.
Oh,
So the
yes.
shows are, do you remember?
We have shows October 18th and 19th.
Those are Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday, and
Friday
then
and
the
Saturday.
following weekend, the 25th and 26th,
Also, yeah,
also Friday and
Friday.
Saturday. On the Saturdays, there are matinees at 2 o'clock. And on Friday, we have shows at 8 p.m. And then the first weekend, there's also a Saturday at 8 p.m. show. So lots of opportunities to grab tickets for those shows. And the Disney shows that we've done in the past tend to sell out. And so if you're hesitating, if you're thinking, should I get tickets or should I just show up to the door, maybe get them in advance because
Maybe get them in advance.
they might go fast.
And the easiest way to tell people, just go to garnerperformingartscenter.com, garnerperformingartscenter.com, and you'll find out how to get to. There's a banner, I think, right
Yeah.
now for Little Mermaid.
You can also
just
check on,
click on it.
yeah, you can check on Facebook too.
We have a Facebook event.
Yeah.
We have a Facebook event, and yeah, look for promotions else all over, and it's going to be a good show.
Yes.
It'll be a great show.
Yes.
But I've been told, I'm not a theater person, but I've been told that one reason why local theater groups and even bigger theater groups don't do it is it's kind of a tough show for technical reasons and other reasons.
Yeah.
What are some of the difficulties with this show?
Well, I mean, obviously you have people swimming around and sprouting legs and almost being boiled into giant gumbo pots, and so yes, there's a lot going on technically. And fortunately, we're in a great space for that. It's a wonderful place to work in. We've got plenty of room to make all that tech stuff happen. And I think from the actor's side, it's Disney, and so people feel really loyal to their favorite Disney stories. And so if you come to see The Little Mermaid, you're expecting certain things from your characters. You want for them to be the replica of those Disney characters that you know and love. And so you definitely want to protect the identity of those Disney characters when you're tasked with bringing them to life.
Wow, now I'm even more nervous.
No! Oh my gosh. You're doing great. Killing it.
Have a long way to go. But I don't think we even mentioned that you are playing Ariel.
Yeah.
And have you did you play that in the junior show?
I've never done it
Kids?
before.
You've never done
No. We did Beauty and the Beast Beauty and the Beast Junior when I was in high school and had the chance to do that show. But I have never been involved in Little Mermaid Junior. Actually, when I was Miss North Carolina was when the Town Players did the junior version, and so I missed it. I got to come and see it, but I wasn't involved in it because I was traveling the state during that time. So yeah, I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to do it. I've sung Part of Your World many, many times. It was in my
standard
touring rep when I was Miss North Carolina. Something about the name Arlie, Ariel, they're similar. People like to hear it.
And so
so I've sung a lot of the music for a long time, but I'm glad to get to dive into the show for sure.
So I don't think I knew this, or I don't know much about it. So after you were named Miss North Carolina and participated in the Miss America pageant, or maybe in the lead up to that even, you had to do some touring?
Yes.
What was that?
So,
What did that involve?
Well, that's how Miss North Carolina is really the coolest first job you could ever have. That was my first real grown-up job. I think I worked at Justice the summer before that, like the little girls store, and then the next summer I was Miss North Carolina. So it was an upgrade. Not as many free socks, but I got over it. So when I worked as Miss North Carolina, you are asked to take the year off of whatever you're doing. So if you are already out in the working world, your full-time job becomes Miss North Carolina. For me, I left school for a year to be Miss North Carolina. And fortunately, East Carolina was super supportive and really rallied around me and made that transition in and out and back in again really easy. But yeah, you travel all over the state of NC, and you you never know where you're going to wind up next. You might be at a pig picking one night. The next day you might be at a ball. So you never know. I went to the Lee County Fair and went to a goat show once. And I remember very distinctly there was a little girl who, her goat had won the blue ribbon. And she was trying to take a picture of me and the girl and the goat kept eating the blue ribbon, and it was a cultural experience for sure. I'm a suburban girl, so it was interesting. But it's cool because you get to meet so many different people. I got to be at the state fair for the entire 10-day duration of the state fair, and just got to interact with people from all over North Carolina. And holy cow, I love our state so much. People are so welcoming and so kind, and I just was bowled over by the beauty of our state's landscape and also by just the wonderful nature of everybody that I met. So yeah, it was an amazing year and definitely full of all kinds of interesting adventures.
Wow. What surprised you the most? What did you learn anything strange or surprising about that? Well, probably many strange things.
I mean,
What surprised you the most?
I think because I grew up in Garner and I went to school in Raleigh and I went to East Carolina, but it's a college town, and I had been to my grandparents had a place at the Outer Banks at Harker's Island, and so knew and loved that area. But there's so much more of the state that I hadn't seen, and there's a lot more. I think I appreciate the agriculture that North Carolina brings to the table. I knew it was an agricultural state, but didn't really understand the depth of that.
Right.
And so yeah, just getting to see more of the state, going north and south in addition to east and west. There's just so much more to see, and I would drive through little towns and find just gems along the way that I never would have known about otherwise. And so getting to see, just like peel back a layer of there's so much more to North Carolina than you realize. Yeah, mountains and coast, but all the stuff in between is awesome.
Wow. So you've mentioned we've mentioned your parents and the work they've done with town players, and also helping to I think they played a role in helping to get this auditorium renovated.
Yeah.
A not insignificant role. What is it like to come back here and to kind of be collaborators with them now? Because with the summer the kids show, you're the music director, and I'm here for some of it, and I can see you're actually kind of you seem to be sort of the one giving a lot of the direction some of the time. So what's it like to work with your parents, I guess largely your mom in the director role, in that collaborational type, is that a word? As a collaborator.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's super neat. And I mean, it's cool to have grown up around in this environment. You always hear that adage, you can't be what you can't see. And so my mom is my biggest role model, and this idea of oh yes, a female director, that was just well, yes, that's okay. And then when I got out into the world and realized that wasn't as much of a thing, I was shocked by that. And so having grown up in this environment and now getting to be my whole life, from passing out the seat cushions, I've always wanted to be in the middle of the action. And so it's really cool to get to work alongside my parents. And also, I mean, it makes my job a lot easier because I know how to read them very well. And so I know when it's a good time to ask a question. I know when it's a good time to just stand back and listen. I know when I can anticipate sometimes, okay, well, this is probably what's going to happen next. So how can I help? And I don't have to ask, would this be helpful for me to do this? I can just do it. So yeah, it makes, the fact that it's a family affair definitely makes it easier in a lot of ways. And I enjoy it.
Well, you raise an interesting point about women in directing stage and also film and TV, and I think I read or heard something recently. It was a female director, and she was remarking on still how few TV and film female directors there are. Yeah. And she's it's just so strange as you think what do little girls, or at least a lot of little girls, do when they're growing up? Well, they play make believe, they play dress up, they make up dialogue and role play. It's what you do as a director,
yes.
right? So why aren't there more female directors?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that my hope is that that's changing. My husband is a filmmaker, and so I see, at least on like the film festival circuit and that sort of thing, there does seem to be a real emphasis on elevating voices that have sometimes been stifled in the past, and I think that that's really exciting. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, that's what's interesting about this like moment in time, is that I think that there's a real catalyst for change. And so my hope is that we'll continue in that trajectory, because like I say, for me it was just always second nature. It was something that I saw and it was really visible to me. And so I hope that it will continue to, you know, that visibility will continue to increase. And I mean, I don't know, I keep going back to documentaries, but one of my favorite films is Misrepresentation, and it talks about the visibility of women in the media and how women are discussed in the media. And it's a few years old at this point, but it still is really, really fascinating to watch. It's a great film that capitalizes on that issue and talks about, okay, well, how do we define role models for young girls and what girls should be? And I don't know, it's definitely, it's an interesting time for sure. And I often say I competed in pageants, but I definitely consider myself to be a feminist, and I think that sometimes those things are viewed as maybe not simpatico, but yeah, I don't know, it's a great moment for girl power, so I hope it continues that way.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever experience or feel that tension between being, you know, having participated in pageants and, you know, the side of you that is more feminist?
Yeah.
You identify as feminist?
Yeah. Well, I think so Kate Shindle, who was Miss America in 1998, she wrote a book and really delved into this and how, you know, like Miss America and feminism don't have to be at odds with each other. But I think that too, like so many of the things, and here we are talking about doing a Disney princess show, and let's be honest, like Ariel is not always known as the most woke princess.
Right.
But you see in this modern, you know, retelling of the story in the musical version, you see her start to demonstrate some of those traits that we often herald in our more modern Disney princesses. She's strong, she's independent, she's forward thinking, she's brave. But I also feel like in princesses and pageantry, a lot of the values that are heralded are things like being kind, being thoughtful, being friendly, being, I don't know, loving. And I think that those are really valid traits too. And so instead of saying, well, girls need to toughen up, let's value those traits. And let's also say, like, hey, boys can have those traits too.
Yeah.
Like there is room enough for both. Like, to be a multifaceted member of society, you need all of those things. So let's celebrate all of them. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely think of some boys and men who could use some more of those values. Let's talk about what do you think you've learned about yourself through all your years performing? Kind of what, in my very limited experience, it does kind of open up. It makes you kind of examine your personality and your boundaries and stuff like that. What do you think you've learned about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm really type A, and I can be kind of a control freak because of that. Like, I want things to be just so, and I want them to be right. And what I love about theater is that you spend all this time in rehearsal getting things just so, getting them just right, and being really precise. And then, when it comes down to it, you get on stage and you let it all go, and you just are free in that moment. And if you've done all the technical stuff beforehand, all that preparation, you can just enjoy. And so I love that side of it. It's really freeing to be on stage because you've done all of the work and you get to see it pay off. It's not instant gratification, but I mean, it's in a really truncated time, and so it's super satisfying. And as a type A individual, I enjoy those moments of freedom on stage where I can just relax and let it come. And if something does not come the way that I anticipated it, or would have it be in my perfectly controlled world, well, you just have to deal with that. And so it's a good exercise in letting go of that control.
Yes, yeah, I can see that. And while we're on more of a philosophical track, too, I think the other thing you can kind of learn through the performing arts is how kind of extend that or extrapolate into your everyday life and see how so much of what we do is kind of a performance, kind of performative.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've experienced and thought about?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. When I was in like high school, I guess psychology class, when they talked about the Stanford prison experiment, I was like, oh yeah, retweet. Like I totally feel, I see where that, like no surprise to me here. Because when you're on stage, you put on a costume, and anybody who's ever done a show before knows, like when you put that costume on and go into your first dress rehearsal, it's like a totally different performing experience. And so, yeah, I definitely see that happening on stage. And I mean, heck, it happens when you're Miss North Carolina. You put the crown on, and all of a sudden you feel capable of walking up to the governor and saying, hello, it's good to see you, which me, Arlie Honeycutt, would probably shrink from initially. Now I feel a little more confident, but at 19 years old when I won, oh gosh, I don't know. And same goes for, I put on my teacher lanyard every day, and I put it on, and I feel capable and confident and ready to go. And so there's definitely a performative aspect to everything we do. All the world's a stage, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess it could be, you can see it as, it could either be repressive or sort of liberating as well, because you can say, well, I'm like this, I play this role, I'm expected to play these roles, but I could also kind of shed that and take on different roles and
Yeah, I think
perform who I am in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you're like, I'm kind of introverted, and I very much am one of those people who has to come home and recharge my batteries and be away from people. But like having that performance mindedness. Okay, well, I'm this is how a teacher would act, and so this is what I'm going to do. Sometimes that can help to kind of buck you up in those moments when you feel like you need to like retreat into that shell.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we're coming up on the end of our time here, but I'm really happy that we could have this conversation and have it here, because this is such a meaningful place, I know, to you, and it's become one to me and my family as well, and we appreciate what y'all do, what your family does, and just really thankful to be a part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be a little piece of the puzzle, for sure. I am certainly grateful for that.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps up this episode of Garner Station Podcast. Look for this podcast and all of our others wherever you get your podcasts, and also you can check it out on YouTube at the Town of Garner YouTube channel. Thanks, and we'll see you and talk to you next time on Garner Station. Thanks.